Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao konnichiwa, guten morgen, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Ken at 10. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. If it's your first time, then welcome. Thanks for coming along. We talk about property every day, amongst other things locally here in Norbury, SW16, starting with the weather and going on to more important things, such as what's going on with the property market, both locally and nationally. We're based in Norbury, which is situated between Streatham and Croydon. And thanks for all of those of you that have liked and shared our videos and lives in the past. Please continue to do so, because it lets us know that you're there and that we're not just speaking into an empty box there. So hope you're doing well today. In terms of weather today here in Norbury, it's quite mild, actually. It's quite nice. It's certainly not sort of gloves and scarf weather. It's a little bit blue sky, just a little tinge of grey in there, not wet, and quite pleasant for the time of year. So quite happy with that. It's quite nice when it's just clear, isn't it, at the moment? So in terms of what's going on, there was a lovely story I saw in the Mirror today, which kind of, on the one hand, made me think, oh, that's lovely. And on the other hand, made me think, yeah, but it's not real life, is it? And it's all about this lovely looking young lady. And her name is Isabella Hunter. And she's revealed how she bought her first home on a £12,000 salary and started saving at 15. It's a beautiful story. And, you know, she's a trainee nurse, and credit to her. She's done it all, found and bought her first home, done it all up and done it all at the sweet age of 19, bless her. It's lovely. But then when you read deeper into the story, you find actually she lives in Wales, in Cumbria, and the house was 107,000. So as beautiful as it is, it's not real life, you know, for most of us. It may be in Wales, but here in London, you know, the idea that you could, you know, get the money together that's required is quite hard. It's much harder for young people. That's what I'm trying to say, really. And I think, you know, it's beautiful when it happens, but more often than not, what we find here in London, that banker mum and dad is the major help, you know, and understandably so, because it's so tough out there. Apparently the Australians like us. Did you know that? The Aussies are just about to pour 23 billion into the UK. And this is with plans to invest this over the next 5 years with a particular focus on real estate. So that's interesting that even the Australians have got confidence in the UK property market. And I would say of all the property markets in the world, the Australian one is the closest to ours. You know, they have actually better tax incentives than we do to buy houses. They have this kind of a special interest scenario where you can offset some of your payments, unlike us, which are taxed on them, especially when it comes to buy-to-let. So lots of reasons why they're similar models, but it's interesting to see that they have a lot of confidence in our own property market over in the UK. The Bank of England in the Financial Times today has been cautious against aggressive approaches to rate rises. And this is Hugh Pill. Strange name, isn't it? Hugh Pill, the Bank of England's chief economist, Hugh Pill, will take the pill on that, they said. He argued for a gradual approach to interest rate rises, adding that he had voted last week for the 0.25% hike to 0.5 rather than a steeper increase, partly because he did not want interest rate policy to be seen as a foot to the floor on the accelerator. He went on to warn that future monetary policy, depending on how pragmatic and realistic companies and households were about prices, the longer that firms try to maintain real profit margins and employers try to maintain real wages, the more likely it is that domestically generated inflation will achieve its own self-sustaining momentum, even as the external impulse to UK inflation recedes. What he's talking about there is the wage cost increase spiral, which is a regular thing that economists allude to. And this is the idea that because prices have gone up, you demand higher salaries, and because you demand higher salaries, there's room for those prices to go up further, and this creates a vicious spiral. Of course, it's very easy for an economist to say that, the idea that you should take less in your wages to stop that economic spiral is frankly not going to happen, is it, realistically? Top 30 most house-proud cities in the UK have been revealed, and it's revealed that homeowners from 30 cities have been looked at, and each city was awarded points based on their efforts to improve and upkeep their homes during the year. Taking into account things such as money spent on improvements and time spent cleaning, Oxford was named the proudest city, with London second. A study by Checkatrade found that 35% of the 2,399 adults polled love their homes now more than they did a year ago. The affection for their dwellings is also reflected to increased modern home improvement spending, with an average 2,700 spent in the last 12 months. Well, regarding home improvements and things, this week on the podcast should be an interesting one. I'm hoping to convince my retired friend Dave, who is much better than I am at these things. And, you know, there's an old tip that you should surround yourself with people that are better than you. And Dave is certainly better than me when it comes to these things. And it'll be lovely to have him on the podcast. He has all sorts of ideas and tips and tricks of how you can save money on your energy bills. And he's a terrific guy. Hopefully we can get him on the show to talk about things like the different kind of things you can do. There's even investments that you can do that might be helpful, and right from the basics as well, actually. We're talking right from loft insulation up to the newest tech gadgets and investments that might help you if you already have done those things and think, is there any other angle that you've missed? In terms of the office today, got another person off sick today. It seems to be a time of year for it. Hope that lovely Caroline gets well soon. Again, we're surrounded by lovely people here in the office, and it's always a concern when someone's off. You just wish them well and hope they get back to their feet as soon as possible. Obviously, it puts pressure on everybody else, but our guys, they can cope. They're great. So we will bash through it and it'll be fine. So if you have anything that you need, in terms of advice, valuation, anything like that, we're still here for you. We're still in the office, answering phones and making sure that our clients get the best possible service. In terms of the market, still strong, actually. We're finding there's still a lack of new stock coming to the market. We're starting to get a few new instructions filtering through and getting viewings on those. Sales are taking a while to complete. That's been a frustration for us. We've got a couple of sales where we're just waiting on things like mortgage offers to come through, which are taking an inordinate amount of time in some cases. And lenders, underwriters are being particularly cautious. One of the things that happens when you have a mortgage, the survey's done, and then quite often the underwriter might be looking at a certain nuance, maybe with the property. Maybe they don't like the fact that there's a right of way that's shared. It could be with the individuals. Maybe they found that there's something in the bank that they didn't like the look of, and therefore are putting a further query on it to consider whether that person is a suitable risk. And it's one of the problems with the system, actually. All of the systems around mortgages tend to be what they call subject to status agreements in principle. And what this means is, in principle, they'll agree to lend you the money. Well, in principle, I'll give you £10 if you give me 15 back, but in reality, I might not. And, that kind of approach is wrong. In this day and age, we should have something more concrete. We should be able to go out there and say, look, the Halifax have said yes. Not yes subject to status, but actually yes. So at the point where people are applying for the mortgage, it's not a maybe, it's an actual yes. And that would involve the lenders getting involved at a stage pre-purchase. And of course, the problem with that is, by definition, a mortgage is security against the property. But I do think we need to turn that on its head and say, hey, look, buyers, this is not an offer in principle. This is an offer. Obviously subject to the property that you buy, but in terms of your status, you are clear. And if people had that reassurance, then your negotiating strength as a buyer would be improved massively, and our reassurance as an agent when advising our client would be improved massively. And also, the lender then couldn't turn around later and say, actually, we're not happy with your status, because they've already agreed it, assuming nothing changes. So that's the one thing I'd really like to see change, is these subject to contract offers turn into hard and fast offers in terms of the status of the buyer prior to them agreeing to a sale, and the underwriters having looked at the individual rather than the property, and have a sort of a pro forma offer of money to that client, which is almost guaranteed by the lender. Love to see that come around. I think it would be a really important step in making people feel more confident in the buyers that they've chosen, and certainly would put those buyers that took it up at great advantage to those that didn't. Apart from that, we've got quite a lot of sales chasing to do today. It tends to be the case sort of towards the end of the week, we're making sure the sales are chased. And the reason for that is that solicitors tend to get very busy on a Friday, and because they're exchanging a lot of contracts and they're completing. So Thursday is a day when we make sure that all the ducks are in a row to make sure that come Friday, they're where they need to be, because we're more likely to be able to access those solicitors on the telephones and by email than we are on a Friday when we know they're extra busy. So we try and put the pressure on a Thursday to make sure that conveyancing work is done ahead of time so that you get your sale across the line if you're with us. So that's it for today. Hope you have a good day. Obviously, great day of the week tomorrow, Friday, my favorite. Looking forward to that. Thanks for the like, by the way. And we'll be back tomorrow with another edition. Until then, stay safe, look after your family and friends and yourselves, of course. Ciao.